Hi, everybody. Karina Schmidt back with Tiffany from Aunt Tiff's Place. For part two, we're talking about domestic violence and helping victims of abuse. And Tiffany, thank you for coming back to part two and talking to us about this extremely important topic. Um, we left off with your own experience being in a situation that you were trying to escape, and at some point, after you get to Florida, law enforcement shows up after yet another day of trouble in the house. Can you start out by telling us a little bit about what are some of the issues? Because you mentioned that the police department really didn't do a whole lot when they came out. What are some of the issues that are very common that you see both from your experience, but also victims that you're helping in these situations when they show up at the door? What's the issues with law enforcement? What is it that they are not doing?
Well, a lot of it is they're waiting till after the fact, and even when you do have victims with marks and things like that on them, a lot of times the victims are very scared to press charges, and they won't arrest the person if the victim doesn't say, "I want to press charges" or "I want him to go to jail." But nine times out of ten, oh, I lost you.
I have a little camera issue here for a second.
Little camera issue. I don't know why it keeps dimming out on me. Um, a lot of times though, they will say, okay, well, if you don't want to press charges, there's nothing we can do. But the victim is so scared to press charges because they know it's just gonna make him more upset. And when he comes out of jail, it's gonna be 10 times worse when he gets home. So it's
What kind of
that
issue?
that
What kind of
fear, and it's like, why is the state not picking up charges? Like the state can say, okay, well, clearly there's evidence of a crime here. We're going to pick up the charges. Why is it that if you know that the victim is scared, you can see it, you can sense it, you see the bruises, you see the marks, why are they not being arrested? If the woman says, no, I don't want to press charges, but you can see that there's clearly a victim here. Like we need to do more to protect them, or tell them like we are going to actually protect you and save you from the abuse continuing on. But when you get these guys that are continuously abusing these women, and they get out of jail in 24 hours, 48 hours, and then it just intensifies, it gets worse. They're getting a smack on the hand, so to speak, and getting maybe 6 months probation, and then they complete it, and then they're done. But you got people that are doing smoking weed or doing other little shoplifting that get more time than somebody that's physically assaulting another person, and that's not okay. And until we
do
come
you
to some kind of solution. Florida just changed their law. It's an automatic, I think, 2 days now for the first time, 10 days for the second offense, and 20 days for the third offense.
that's absurd.
It's not, it's so broken with these girls being scared that, okay, well, he's going to come out of jail and I have to give my kid 50% of the time with him. So even if I get into a safe spot, I still have to allow him to have custody of my kid 50% of the time. And right now I'm staying because I can keep the kids quiet and they don't get abused because I keep them quiet. I let them, make them walk on eggshells. I shelter them from the abuse. I'd rather be in the house and know that they're safe than not be in the house and not know what's going on in that house. And if he's going to have too much to drink that night and something's going to set him off and he's going to go after the kids. But he can strangle me and beat the living heck out of me. But we're still going to give him we're going to still give these kids to a man that just violently attacked his kid's mother. It just really doesn't make sense to me the way Florida does it.
Do you think that there's a problem with lack of education of law enforcement officers to deal properly with these cases, and the same actually with our legislators, because it comes down to those that are making the laws as well. It's not just the officers that show up at, the victim's house. So do
Absolutely,
you, do you think
absolutely.
that
And it,
that they
it
lack
it really
education
starts with the education of the officer because even now, as from going from victim to an advocate, and I go to these county meetings and just 2 weeks ago I had dealt with an officer in Northport who said, "Oh, well, she's just going to go back, so like what is the point?" And I said, "Well, that's because there's nowhere for her to go. Where's she going to go with a 6-month-old baby and she doesn't have a job. She doesn't have a car. Where do you expect her to go? If we don't educate these girls, if we don't come alongside and say, "Hey, I got you. I'm going to walk with you through this and get you to the other side. And we're going to enroll you in school so you can get an education." Because most of the time, these girls come from poverty. They come from not, they've never had a good education or that all they've seen is chaos and abuse. And so it's normal to them. And until somebody comes alongside and says, "Hey, let's get you your GED and let's get you a trade, let's get you into school so you don't have to ever go back into this situation again. We're going to make you independent so you don't have to worry about depending on somebody to provide for you because you have 2 or 3 kids because he's flushing your birth control down the toilet and
on drugs and
purposely trying to
alcohol.
get you pregnant." The more kids you have, the harder it is to leave. So let's get them educated. Let's offer them a safe place, not 6 weeks and you're back out on the street because you have nowhere to go. So you're forced to go back to your abuser until we get them into a year-long program that's gonna, okay, we're gonna give you a year. We're gonna make sure that you're going to class as long as you're doing everything you're supposed to do. Like we're gonna check your grades. We're gonna make sure you're going to school and doing it. Then you can stay till you graduate. Once you get graduated, then we're gonna help you find work and we're gonna help get you into your own place versus saying, okay, you got 6 weeks of shelter. Now you're on your own. Figure it out. And that's where a lot of these girls are. They're like, well, I don't have no choice. Say they gave me 6 weeks and I have nowhere to go, so I got to go back to my abuser because there's no help for me. There's no funding, is what we're being told.
Are you
There's no
telling me
funding.
that
There's no
in
money to help get them.
Are you telling me that in Charlotte County right now, and perhaps Sarasota as well, which are our neighboring county, the only offer they get from the state, from the county, is a 6 weeks resting place, so to speak, in a shelter, and then they are
Yeah,
actually let out with no place to
yeah.
go. And
Yes, if they say
ha
there's no funding, then they gotta go.
right,
If they don't have funding to help get them into their own place, and they don't have a job set
but
up,
that's not.
then they're told they gotta go. They got 6 weeks, and that's it. And we have one shelter, and it has roughly 6 beds in there, and so there's no stability. They're not helping them find jobs. They're not helping connecting them to more resources. It's a little temporary solution. And until
It
we
sounds
get a
like
long-term house
it sounds
that's
like
gonna say, okay, well,
it sounds like the county lacks providing resources as well to get through the initial trauma, because you don't treat the trauma in just 6 weeks. You're not over the whole thing that has been,
absolutely
years
not.
of abuse in just 6 weeks. This is not like getting a driver's license. That's not what this is. This is years of abuse, years of trauma, um, and a complete breakdown in many cases of their own self that needs to be rebuilt, and you cannot do that in just 6 weeks. So should we have education programs too for our, for example, county commissioners, law enforcement, and our state legislators, that should be required to take classes so they understand what issues they're dealing with?
Absolutely. And last week with the incident that I dealt with the client, 2 weeks ago, the officer said, "Oh, we're working on getting more trained officers more trained to deal with domestic abuse." And I said, "Well, that's a good thing, but we we've been suffering for so long, and until we get some kind of long-term stability, there's South County and Sarasota County and Charlotte County are have no resources. I'm literally one of the only resources for these women to come and get clothes, diapers, formula, household necessities. We set them up for everything. We give them everything they could possibly need to start over once they're able to get into their own place. So we do a think outside the box method because I can't financially help them get into a place or help them get into a hotel until I can get some grant fundings coming in to be able to do it. I tell him anytime he gives you money for diapers, wipes, formula, whatever he gives you money for, you come get it from us and you stash that money until we get you about $1,000 saved up. And then we start sending them on job interviews because you can't get any kind of assistance with getting into your own place if you don't have a job. So
Nope.
once we get them into the hotel and I get them that month of pay stubs, then they can apply for the assistance for the moving costs of getting their own place, and it avoids DCF altogether because DCF is not your friend. Unfortunately, people think, oh, they're great,
No, it's
which
not.
if the system worked correctly, yes, it would be, but they're not necessarily your friend, and so people don't call 911 because they're afraid that DCF's going to come in and take their babies from them, so they stay until they figure it out. So we just say, okay, stash that money, stash. Once you get that mark, are you sure you're ready to go? Okay, awesome, let's get you to a hotel that's close to your work or close to where we can get you daycare set up. We
So do
provide
you,
that temporary daycare for them so they can get a job.
so Tiffany, do you work with the victims while they're still in the homes of the abuser?
Yes, I
You
do.
work
They
secretly.
call, a lot of times they call me versus calling 911. They'll call me and I'm in the bathroom and he's beating on the door or he's yelling and screaming. He's drunk again. I'm just waiting for him to fall asleep. And there's been times that I've went and picked up girls out of a $500,000 home and people think it's a poor person problem or
No,
it's
it's
a
not.
black problem or it's just the trailer park no, this is a big problem. It goes hand in hand with human trafficking. These men are all the same type of men that we're dealing with. Like the girl that I picked up about a couple months ago, she was in a $500,000 home on the water in Punta Gorda. Like it doesn't discriminate. It's people every you see in the store, you would never know. They smiling, they're happy, but behind closed doors, it's a whole nother story. And those are the
So
type of girls
how
that
do
reach
they,
out.
besides, I mean, we're going to promote this video, obviously, and get the message out there, but how do they hear about you? How do you get the
Um,
message out?
It's kind of word of it started out just word of mouth. And then, I started advertising more on Facebook. And whether you have been through childhood trauma, adult trauma, or you're just a woman that really needs a friend and trying to appeal to women that are just looking for some support, reach out. I'm here because I know what it's like to go without and not have anyone to talk to and feel alone and abandoned. And I've walked in their shoes. So they trust me to listen and come up with solutions because if you've never walked in it, you really don't understand it. You can have a degree in psychiatry, you can have all these fancy schooling, but unless you've truly walked through the situation, you just don't really get it. And that's why I felt like I was being called to be the light at the end of the tunnel. When I started over with the clothes on my back and my kids each had a book bag full of clothes and that was it. That's all we had. And thankfully when I finally got back into my house, the church that I was going to here in Florida basically helped me start over. They gave us clothes and furniture, helped me fix the holes in the wall and everything that we needed, they set me up. And so that's kind of how it came about. A couple of years later, I went to them and I said, I feel like God's calling me to be the light at the end of the tunnel. And they're like, what do you need? And I'm like, everything you did for me and tenfold, because a lot of these girls have younger babies. So within 48 hours, we kind of had a building full of, and me getting the place, I had a building full of stuff. Before it was just me doing it out of my garage and just collecting items to help people in need. But then when I got the building, it kind of blew out of the water because people were hearing what I was doing and they would just drop donations off and the clothes and stuff. And after Hurricane Ian, I said, okay, anybody that lost stuff in the hurricane, come and get stuff. I don't care who you are, what you've been through. If you come and get stuff from us and you don't really need help, that's kind of between you and God. I'm just doing what God's called me to do, and that's to help other people that are suffering and try to get them out of their situation a little bit sooner. So their kids don't have the trauma that my children had to endure because I had no light at the end of the tunnel for a very long time.
Tiffany, Aunt Tiff's place is not a home as shelter in itself, is it? It's a
No,
place where people
and
can go and get the basic necessities to get back on their feet.
yes,
Um, Kids' clothes and items for their house, sort of like a Habitat for Humanity kind of place, but they're not paying
yeah,
for it.
kind of like a goodwill, a free goodwill, I
A
should
free
say, because
goodwill.
we
So
give
what
them
is
whatever
it?
they need to start over. We try to break as many barriers as possible to keep them from having to go back into the situation. So since I can't financially afford to, help financially, I do all the other stuff. I break the barriers by giving them diapers, by giving them clothes. So you can take that money that you'd be buying your kids back to school clothes and put that towards your FPL bill and come get clothes from us because our clothes are like brand new. We keep our clothes. We only keep clothes that we would wear ourselves and wear or put on our kids. If I want to wear or put it on my kids, we don't keep it. We want them to feel like they are valued, they're loved, and that they they're seen and they're not forgotten. Like a lot of people feel like
So
I'm
what's
just forgotten, and we want them to feel because I can't afford to get a safe house at this time financially. I've been trying to search for grants, and even Charlotte County has asked me, when are you going to start a safe house? And I'm like, well, where's the money coming from?
yeah.
Because I don't have it. We paid $2,500 for the little tiny building that I have now, and we're barely keeping our doors open. I fund that financially myself by taking in these kids that so we don't charge the domestic violence girls per daycare at all. If you're actively fleeing, if you have a job interview, you bring your baby to me. I'll watch your baby, go to your interview, you come right back. We help them. We try to break as many barriers as possible. Now we got single parents that make right above the cutoff line but are still really struggling for assistance. Those are the women that we do charge. We charge them basically $35 a day, and that's what covers our center rent, and it barely covers it. Right now, I'm dealing with issues with the state on getting it fully licensed into a licensed child care center because that's what they want me to do now. I'm $10,000 deep in the hole of education and getting all my licensing. And every time I turn around, they're adding to, oh, now we need you to do this. Now we need you to do that. Now they're trying to make me invest in $30,000 worth of sprinklers in a little 1,500 square foot building. And I'm like, I don't have
Ridiculous.
that kind of money. I'm like, why are you guys giving me such a hard time? I'm just trying to help people, and you want to make me add in all these
All
barriers
this
that are
red
keeping
tape.
me.
All this red
Like I
tape.
can't afford that. And what are these parents supposed to do that can't afford daycare $350 a week? And what I'm charging them half of that so that they can stay afloat. And you're sending people to me to get help for clothes and stuff, but nobody wants to financially help keep this going. Like, what am I
Tiffany,
supposed to do?
I want to make sure that we get the message out to anybody that needs help from you. Where can they find you? Like, for example, somebody needs help and they don't want to call 911 because they don't want to get DCF involved because they want to know where their kids are. Because sometimes when they end up in DCF, you never know where the kids end up. What's the
Yeah,
phone
I
number
had
they
one.
can call to get in touch with you?
So it's 941-800-7956. And that number is 24 hours a day. It stays on. It's not a 9 to 5 thing. It's on all night long. And then there's always Facebook Messenger. I've had girls reach out on Facebook through the Messenger, and we are very careful. We tell them, okay, when we finish our conversation, make sure you delete your conversation. Make sure you're not leaving anything in your phone, any evidence of this conversation. Make sure when you call, make sure you delete it off the call log. So, and that's really hard because especially when you have girls that say, I gotta go, and then you don't hear from them. That's one of the hardest parts about doing because you can't call back. You know you
Right.
can't call back because it could put them more at risk. So it's
It can be
really, really a
dangerous for
struggle to
them.
do.
Yeah, it can
And
be
all
more
you can
dangerous
do
for
is
them.
kind of just pray.
Where is your Aunt Tiff's place located so they can meet you there?
We are in Port Charlotte, right off of Collingswood Boulevard. You can Google the name Aunt Tiff's Place.
What's the
It
actual
comes right up
address so
on
we
the
can look at
maps. We do have a website as well as anttiffsplace.org. So they can always go on the website and find us on there as well and find contact information as well. And we have that support group that meets on Thursday nights as well for those women.
What's the actual address for Aunt Tiff's
One, it's 1435 Collingswood Boulevard
in Port Charlotte?
in Port Charlotte, 33948.
Very good. And you said the store has certain hours. What are the hours so we can get that out to people too?
So the clothing closet is basically kind of by appointment only during the week. But we're trying to get more volunteers. It's really hard to get volunteers. I'm one person. I'm doing the job of like three different people. So I'm
You're
helping with
amazing.
taking care of the daycare kids. I'm back and forth to the clothing closet. On Saturdays, we usually have the third Saturday of the month. We're open for anybody in the community that's really struggling. They can come and get clothes or whatever they need from us without any questions being asked, without us saying, well, I need to see your proof of income. I need to see this. I need to see that. We're just more
Red
of,
tape
it,
from like the government. Yeah, we don't.
like if you
No,
come
no
get
red
it, if you
tape.
need it, you need it. If you don't, that's between you and God. It'll work itself out. God always provides for us to keep our center doors open. I mean, we're really struggling to keep them open, but we're making it work with what the little bit of money that I have because I just know that this is what I'm supposed to do to help others that are struggling to make it through.
Tiffany, when somebody goes on your website, do they have the ability to donate to your organization straight on your website? Or
Yes, there is. It is on. There's a link on there, and then there's also Zelle. That's the easiest way. They don't take any money out of that, but the PayPal Giving Fund is on there, is on the website. The Zelle, if you use Zelle, the center phone number, it goes directly into the center phone number, the center business account, which would provide us relief with trying to keep the doors open and possibly getting to that point where we can put a girl in a hotel for a night or two while we figure out a better solution. Because right now, if I get a call in the middle of the night and a girl says she's ready, I get in my car and I go pick that girl up, and often they end up back in my living room because there's nowhere else for them to go. There's no shelters that will take them at 2 o'clock in the morning. So I go get them and they sleep in my living room until the next day and I figure it out the next day.
Tiffany, I'd like to talk to you about what is it that you would like Charlotte County to actually do. Like if you could get in front of the commissioners, I'm sure you've appealed to them before, but
Yeah.
what is it that you need from Charlotte County? It's a place, a
We
shelter,
need a bit, yes,
an actual
we need
shelter.
we definitely need a bigger place. I would love to have like an actual building of our own where we have a shelter attached to the clothing closet, attached to the daycare. So everything is right there and we don't have to go across town to get clothes or we pick up a girl and she doesn't have any clothes. The shelter would be right there. The closet is right there and the daycare is right there. So it's all a one-stop shop. We're all in one resource center that helps connect them to jobs, to daycare, to getting the clothes and getting back on track. I've begged and pleaded with Charlotte County about helping us get into a building, and I've been denied so many times. I'm just like, well, what are these people supposed to do unless we come up with some kind of solution. It's got to be something. Whether you guys we do it out of a house and we make the garage into the clothing closet and the daycare and do it all into one, or a building. There's so many buildings that are sitting empty in our county right now that could be utilized for this. But I just can't seem to get the county to come on board with helping to fund it.
What's the reason they're giving you for their denial?
Well, they're telling me there is no buildings, but I have
Oh,
drove
but that's
around this
not true.
county and seen so many buildings
Oh,
that
but
are
that's not
so
true.
many options, perfect opportunities, that places that, yeah, I mean, it may have some roof damage, but we could get the roof fixed. There's little things that we could do to make it better, but they're saying there's no space, there's no buildings, there's nothing we can do, there's no way we can help you. And I've even said, okay, well, what about getting assistance with the rent, keeping the rent, like if I found a building that may not necessarily be a county building, but a building, but we can't afford $7,500 a month in rent. Like we're barely doing the 2,500, and we're outgrown it. Our donations room is so packed full of donations. And a lot of times, as fast as the donations come in, they go right back out into our community, but we still don't have enough space. And I just can't afford a bigger building. Like
So,
we're on verge of closing if we don't get funding coming in really soon.
so let me ask you this. If you were to open a place, let's say a place that could hold 10 or 20 victims that you rescue, and you are to run this place for a year, what's your budget? What do you need for 1 year? If you were to, let's say we could get an apartment building that has
Mhm.
15 little studio apartments or one bedroom apartments, so at least they can get back on their feet. What is the budget for that per year? What would you need?
Honestly, it would depend on what they were going to charge us for the rent. And we know right now, just to run the small center that I run, it's cost me about $10,000 to run it a month. And that's barely us, the daycare, paying for that, and it's barely keeping the doors open. So I can only, if we were able to even get like a 4 or 5 bedroom house that's, $3,500 a month or 4 grand a month, at least it's a start. We'd be able to get 5 girls off the street. They each have their own room with their children, and they'd be able to enroll in like a CNA program or cosmetology or some kind of trade school program that's wouldn't take 2 or 3 years to get, and that way they could get that education they need to get the better income coming in, and they could get into their own place faster.
So if you were to start with say a four-bedroom house just to get off the ground, four-bedroom, two-bathroom house, you might be looking at something like $3,500 a month
Yeah.
plus utilities. So let's round it all up and say, well, the budget might be somewhere in the neighborhood of like $6,500 a month. Your budget would be somewhere in the neighborhood of just roughly $80,000 a year that you need the county to help with to get
Yeah.
victims out of these extremely abusive relationships. And the victims might not need to stay in the house for more than a few months until they get on to the next place.
Hmm. Yeah, the
Is
main
that
goal
fair to
is at
say?
least getting them halfway through, at minimum halfway through school, their trade school program, so that they can work part-time, go to school part-time, and save up to get into their own place and not have to stress out about school and paying $1,500 a month for rent and going to school and feeding their kid and getting the kid to daycare. It's to get them where they need to be and not have that extra stress and heal from the trauma that they've been through. So they have time to really unpack what they've been through and realize that they need, building community is the biggest thing, is finding, people to say, hey, we're family now. When you bring your kid to my place, your kid becomes an extended part of my family. I look at those kids like they're my own kid. I love them and treat them just like I would treat my own kid. And then the parents become an extended family as well. Anytime that I've had girls where they moved across the state and they still keep in touch. And they tell me how they're doing and how they miss us, and but they know, but they're in a good spot now, that's the part that makes it all worth it, is when you hear these stories of now they're
Absolutely.
successful, now they're doing good. They
Right.
realize the red flags now, and
Yeah.
they're not going to take the abuse anymore, and they're never going to have to find themselves in that situation because they're educated now. They've got their little career going on. They're making decent money, so they don't have to worry about depending on anyone to provide for them. They're able to do it on their own. And
Wonderful.
that's what
So,
happened to me. I had to figure out how to get myself educated so that I wouldn't have to be in that type of situation.
right. Tiffany, thank you so much for sharing this with us. We'll be back with part three on the next step that needs to happen in Charlotte County to help the victims. Thank you so much for watching, and Tiffany and I will be back with the last part of this series. Thank you so much. Bye bye.